You're watching BrainStormAcres. I'm Henry.
And I'm Irene.
And today we're going to talk about more of our garden. In particular, we're going to talk about the fall and winter garden. So stay tuned and we'll take you on a little trip.
The first thing we do when we're looking at what we're going to do for the next season, other than seeing what's already growing in the garden, is to see what the weather forecast is. And the weather forecast for this fall and winter was at least 10 degrees warmer than usual through the end of November and maybe even through the end of December.
Which meant that we would have no freezing temperatures whatsoever.
Right. Or if we did have freezing temperatures, it would be super brief and not a hard freeze, just a light one. Because our normal situation here is that somewhere between the second and third weeks in October, we usually get a hard freeze. But from experience, we've learned that if for some reason we don't get that hard freeze, we can keep the tomatoes and peppers alive often until December. We've had fresh tomatoes for Christmas before. They're not setting any more fruit. It's too cold for that, but they are still ripening. The plants don't look great, but who cares what the plants look like? You're not eating them. So we decided, based on the weather forecast, that we would take a chance.
Yeah, we took a chance.
Right, and we rolled those dice and oh boy.
Snake eyes.
Snake eyes, yeah, really. We got home at the end of the summer, and the garden was a mess.
Yeah, it is really, really hot while we were gone. We had several weeks of 100+ degree weather, which is really, really unusual for us.
Right.
Normally we'll only have a few days of over 100 degrees. But
And
not this year.
right, and to make it worse, we had no rain. Like zero, like 0.04 inches for the entire month of August, sort of thing. That's the time when we normally should have rain, which even if the water system had failed, the rain would have come and it would have made a difference and it would have probably kept everything alive. But that just didn't happen. We blamed it all on the water. And we said, okay, well, we're going to replant because they're telling us that we should have a couple of months of relatively frost-free weather. I put in new green beans. I got the tomatoes back in shape. I got the peppers back in shape. Now, surprisingly, despite everything, the peppers did well, especially the poblanos, yes.
Yeah, the poblanos did very, very well.
Yeah, they still managed to give us a good crop. And in fact, we still have a whole stack in the freezer that we have plans for. The tomatoes and peppers were coming back. We were watering. The green beans were coming up. And all of a sudden, the green beans started falling over.
When she says falling over, she literally means plants that were a foot high
Yeah,
were just laying down and being dead.
right. And you're like, okay. And when you pull out the plant, there's no root system.
Absolutely no roots.
Gone. And when you dig up in there,
Guess what you get?
We have grubs. We have June beetle grubs.
Yeah, grubs.
Everywhere.
A lot of grubs.
What do you do? I don't know. Honestly, we don't use some of the nasty modern chemicals and stuff in our gardens, so we were trying, well, what can you do? So we're trying to keep that stuff alive. We got one section there that seems to be doing okay. Still, the stuff that had the climbing beans, so the pole bean section was still doing well. Everything was real. I mean, we had stuff that was 1.5 feet high. Everything was going great. Comes October, we've managed to get a few tomatoes off. We have harvested a lot of peppers. No green beans yet because the plants were too messed up. We did harvest the sweet potatoes because we had an early frost there. But what happened was...
Well, we didn't really have an early frost. We had an early freeze.
Yeah, well, we shouldn't have had a hard freeze, and we did. It was too early, and it was really sudden, and okay. So it was like, okay, what do you do? No, nothing you can do. We sort of watched the plants, especially things like the green beans. Some of them were just actively dying, and there's nothing we could do about that, and that was the grubs. Then there were other sections and other beds where they were doing okay, but then suddenly everything got frozen. So we threw the dice and it didn't work out. Despite the fact what they told us, we had this Arctic thing come down out of Canada. All of a sudden, everything was frozen solid. We had the squash and the cucumbers and stuff that had all started to come back. We did get some squash off. We did get some cucumbers off. We were actually doing some cool stuff there. We had a lot of stuff that was little. Before we went to California on business, I harvested all the small stuff because I just didn't trust it. We'd already been bitten enough times this year, and to be honest, if I'm not there to defend my garden against squirrels and other critters like that, sometimes they just have a really nice dinner out of the deal, and I wasn't willing to give up any of that. So we pulled all the little stuff before we went to California. When we got back, we were still alive, but then really quickly after we got back, we got a very hard freeze. I mean, not 30, not 28, but like 11.
Yeah, really cold. It wasn't forecast. It was really interesting because we watched the weather forecast like hawks.
Mm-hmm.
And we have for many years, Irene especially, because we've been having gardens together for close to 45 years and separately better than 60 years. Mm-hmm. So it's something that we've learned to really watch. And there was no forecast for temperatures in the low teens.
Right.
In fact, the worst it was showing was upper 20s, which is no big deal. We can handle upper 20s with no problem.
Well, the problem was we still had, before we went to California, we decided to chicken out on some of the stuff in the greenhouse. And we pulled all the very smallest tomato plants. We pulled all the tomato plants and we threw them in the dining room.
So we pulled tomatoes, we pulled some cucumbers, and we pulled what we thought were cucumbers that were actually cantaloupe.
They were actually cantaloupe. Yeah, I missed the label on there. We brought all that sort of stuff into the house, put it into trays, and just left it there before we went to California because we figured we were hedging our bets. It shouldn't have been any problem, but, it's not supposed to hit 11 in October.
Now, so it was 11 degrees at night. And did we mention there was wind, like high wind, like 25-mile-an-hour winds?
Right. So we couldn't win that battle.
So we lost a lot of plants.
Yeah, we lost everything basically that I didn't bring in the dining room. And I only brought the small stuff in because you can only transplant so much stuff with you, So basically I threw up a table in the dining room, portable one, and we just tossed a bunch of stuff in there. So we managed to salvage some tomato plants, like you said, a couple cucumbers and some other stuff. Then the weather seemed like it was going to settle down again.
Ha!
Ha ha! Little did we know. That's the story of this fall. Then they're still telling us it's going to be warmer. It's going to be warmer through the end of December.
Liar, liar, pants on fire.
Seriously. We're fiddling around trying to see what we can keep alive. Built a couple more wicking totes for the greenhouse. Planted all the lettuce that we had because I had a whole stack of seedlings. Lettuce seedlings and cabbage seedlings. And I got to do something with these things. I can only keep them in little bitty pots for so long. Most of the stuff survived. We planted it out. It lived. And the big success has been the lettuce and the pak choy.
Cabbage.
And the cabbage.
Cabbage is doing great.
Yeah, we're still getting cabbage. We got our first harvest the other day of a decent size head of tiara cabbage. And I've got like 4 more that I could pick it right now and they'd be fine.
Yeah, now tiara is only supposed to gain a weight between 1 and 2 pounds.
Right.
And we were shooting for about a pound, and we were pleasantly surprised to get 1.5 pounds.
Right. And that's perfect for the two of us for coleslaw and lots of other stuff. So we're perfectly happy with that. After some of the minor disasters, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to try some other things. So I ordered some kohlrabi seeds because I didn't have any of those. I've got probably 22, 23 kohlrabi plants out there right now that are about that big. They have made it through the last week where everything else turned into mush. And basically, the only thing that's left now in the greenhouse is lettuce and brassicas. We have, and beets. The beets survive somehow too, because that's closest to the heater. All the brassicas, so the kohlrabi, the radishes are brassicas too, pak choy, 2 different types of cabbage, they're all fine. I've also got several new types of Asian greens that I've planted out there, and I'm keeping them under domes right now, partially to increase the heat a little bit during the day and get some residual warmth into the soil, and partially just to protect them at night. I think the lesson going forward, and we'll always take gambles. I mean, that part of gardening is gambling.
Yeah, so one of the things that happened is we looked at the seeds that we had left over because except for the kohlrabi that we didn't have any seeds of to begin with, everything that we planted this fall we already had the seed. So we went ahead and used those seeds. Why not?
Right. Now, just this past week, right before it went down to 17 degrees again, I started a bunch of lettuce. So I've got about 8 or 10 lettuce plants that are, a 16th of an inch tall right now. And I'm keeping them under a dome and all that kind of stuff to keep them warmer.
Under the dome. That sounds like in the name of a TV show. Under the dome.
Really, it sounds like it should be something like that. We're going to, because we've got some of our old lettuces bolting. Basically, all the romaine is now bolted. All the Salanova has not bolted yet. Some of it is beginning to get a little lanky, but it's not bitter yet. So until it gets bitter, we're going to just keep eating it.
Boy, the Salanovas have just been terrific.
Amazing.
I couldn't believe how well they're standing up to the cold temperatures and how tender and delicious they are.
My thought for next year is the big word of the year is going to be brassica. I may not even grow any beets in there.
Yeah, for the fall and winter garden,
Yeah.
we'll definitely focus on lettuces, especially the Salanova, and more importantly, all the different varieties of brassicas that are out there.
I've tried once to grow rutabaga and failed here, but that's not shocking.
There's not much shock when something fails here.
No, there isn't. And it could have been me because I'd only never tried. I just did what they said on the packet and it didn't work.
Traditionally, what we do is we grow some vegetables outdoors kind of year-round. So we plant carrots and we do parsnips, onions. Those things will stay in the garden. And in fact, in past years, we've had parsnips for Thanksgiving that Irene's gone out and dug in the
Right, I
garden.
had actually planned to dig parsnips for Thanksgiving this year.
Not through 20 inches of snow.
There was 20 inches of snow, so I went, no, I don't think so. So I've still got parsnips in the garden. We do have some carrots over there. The center bed where I had planted a whole bunch of carrots, the mice just decimated that. There's nothing left of the tops of any of them. And I question whether they'll come back. I do have onions and garlic. We've got like 4 cabbages out there. But we're focusing on the greenhouse now.
Yeah, the cabbages are growing really, really slowly. First of all, it's cold.
Right.
Second of all, we don't have a lot of daylight hours right now.
Let's see. Our current harvest in the greenhouse is lettuce, cabbage, Swiss chard, and then we've got the other brassicas that are babies. We've got a couple of adult pak choys, lots of baby pak choys coming behind it, and kohlrabi, which are still babies. The spinach has not come up yet. I just planted that like 2 days ago. In the garden right now, the outside garden, I've got carrots, parsnips, onions, garlic, and cabbage.
Well, thanks for watching. I think we both hope that this was informative for you. We'll be doing some more updates on this year's gardening experience this week and into next week.
Right.
We still have what we learned about tomatoes and peppers to do. We also are going to be talking about the straw bale gardens and what we learned there. Thanks very much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy this craziness. And don't forget to hit the bell for notifications. Bye.
Bye. Oh, you're doing an Elvis impersonation. We're only halfway.